Hello everyone, and thanks once again for joining us for Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm David Percy, and the first graphic we've got is hazardous weather, showing a couple of yellow areas there indicating advisories. And in the case of the eastern Alaska range, that's a wind advisory that's out for tonight, through tonight. For south winds, gusting as high as 55 miles an hour through the passes, had gusts to 45 miles an hour, for example, at Delta Junction. And that's out through tonight. Winds should start gradually diminishing throughout the night tonight until the advisory ends by tomorrow morning, Friday morning. And then there's a high surf advisory out for the Yukon Delta coast until 10 p.m. this evening due to the gusty winds, west-southwest winds there. Again, those winds will be slowly diminishing as well, so any minor beach erosion should be over by 10 p.m. And if it's not, then they'll just kick it out a little longer. And from there, going to fire danger. Again, nothing really significant. Got high fire danger in the Yukon Flats. Not much in the way of precipitation the last 24 hours there. And then also along the north side of the central and eastern Alaska range, some areas of high fire danger reappearing now, mostly due to the gusty wind conditions there and the lack of precipitation in the rain shadow of the Alaska range with southerly flow and those gusty winds, bumping up the fire danger a little bit there, and then some areas of high fire danger on the north slope as well, but really nothing serious, and otherwise the remainder of the state pretty low. And satellite imagery showing that strong storm that came into the southwest coast yesterday pulled northward and is sitting actually just looks to be just south of Nome, one center. The main overall low pressure area is over the Seward Peninsula. It's moved northward and starting to slowly weaken. And as a consequence, the front pushing eastward weakens as well as it pulls away from the main low center. It kind of becomes parallel to the wind flow. And southeast winds, pretty strong south and southeast winds. So downslope areas like the western Kenai Peninsula up into Anchorage didn't receive as much precipitation as it might have if that low center had tracked farther to the east. But some pretty good rainfall developing along the south coast of the Kenai Peninsula, about ½ inch falling in Seward, and rain on the increase there with the front stalling out over Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast. Otherwise, showers scattered over the Panhandle, also some clearing, allowing temperatures to rise well into the 60s to almost near 70. There, Tok actually seen 70 degrees, a warm spot in the state at mid-afternoon with those downsloping winds and some clearing. And a lot of clearing out over the western Bering Sea and some scattered clearing into the southwest coast, but also a lot of banding of the moisture there with some showers with the low spinning over the Seward Peninsula, slowly weakening. South to north flow again from across the central interior. Then it kind of splits as it approaches the Brooks Range with some light rain occurring at Arctic Village and pretty much dry for the north slope on the Arctic coast. Gusty winds anywhere from 25 gusts 45 miles an hour. Could be a couple isolated gusts of 50 miles an hour today. Mostly out of the east northeast on the western central Arctic coast and northerly to northwesterly. Northerly through the Bering Strait, turn northwest, gust 40-45 miles an hour St. Lawrence Island. Lighter winds today than yesterday over the Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, and Kuskokwim Delta area, with the low center pulling to the north. And just a weak trailing front there from the eastern Aleutians hanging just north of the main Aleutian chain. And then a lot of clouds with the next system you can see from Shimia and south of Adak on off to the southwest there. Kind of moving up, that's the next system. There'll be spreading rain and a little bit of an increase in the wind into the western Aleutians. Not a particularly strong storm at all. And on the chart, you can see that weak trough out there just north of the Aleutian chain, bringing a few isolated showers into Atka Island. Otherwise, basically dry for the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula today. And areas of rain, light rain at times over south central Alaska. Some heavier amounts. Let's see, Talkeetna picked up 3/4 of an inch. Golovin up along east of Nome there had 3/4 an inch as well, and then Norton Bay, Koyuk also had about 3/4 an inch of rain, while Ruby there along the Yukon River, 2/3 of an inch. Those are the heavier rainfall amounts reported around the area, much lighter as you get into the central interior and more scattered. A lot of drying over the eastern interior, and showers scattered mainly over the northern southeast coast, drier down to the south. Temperatures pushing 70 over in misty fjords towards Stewart. Then rain ending up about 1/4 an inch Kodiak, but that front's pushed off to the east, so drying conditions now moving in. And then for tonight, you'll see that front pushes rain into the western Aleutians this evening, and then by after midnight toward morning, that spreads eastward to Adak and Atka, and possibly to Nikolsky. Kind of a separate surge of moisture moving east-northeastward there. And actually that frontal boundary begins to weaken, and another one comes in right behind it. Otherwise, look for moderate amounts of rain, maybe briefly heavy from the area from, say, Cordova to Yakutat. Showers over the central and northern southeast coast, dry to the south. Periods of rain and showers, cloudy skies over much of the southern and eastern interior as well. Some pretty good rainfall could reach the southern slopes of the Central Brooks Range, but the North Slope basically dry, as well as the Arctic coast. Western Arctic coast could see a little bit of light moisture there, but the low center holding kind of quasi-stationary over the Seward Peninsula there, drifting slowly westward actually. That'll kick the winds up in Norton Sound as that pulls westward. Probably looking at small craft advisory southerlies tomorrow there, as we'll see a trough swinging in with rain. So under that low center, it stays unsettled, cloudy, damp, and on the cool side, with showers and cloudy skies all the way down into Togiak Bay across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, showers in the Kuskokwim Valley, showers in the Susitna Valley, showers on the North Gulf Coast, scattered showers in the Copper River Basin, areas of showers over the eastern interior, dry for the Arctic coast, maybe some drizzle and fog on the eastern Arctic coast, dry over the southern Panhandle, showers as you head north, light rain along the North Gulf Coast, showers in Prince William Sound, and some areas of sunshine, Kodiak Island, southern Cook Inlet, the Alaska Peninsula. And you can see that next system develops and spreads rain back into Adak, kind of a continuous rainfall there after it ends over the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula, southern Bering Sea, light winds. And then on Saturday, that low tracks northeastward, right along the Aleutians to just south of the Alaska Peninsula, say near Sand Point by the afternoon Saturday. So increasing wind and rain, moderate rain in the afternoon with breezy conditions for Kodiak Island, and wet for the Alaska Peninsula, and not so wet for the Aleutians, but still mostly cloudy with areas of light rain, fog, and drizzle, and some shower activity. But notice the interior much drier with the approach of that system to the south there. Still some lingering showers on the North Gulf Coast, but look for partly sunny skies, and of course that would mean maybe a little warmer temperatures for inland areas of the state. Lingering showers over toward Eagle and the eastern Brooks Range, Arctic coast, and also with that persistent low slowly weakening but really not moving out of the area, just pulling westward a little bit. Wind's no longer a factor with it at all, but mostly cloudy skies and a few showers around from the northwest coast across the Seward Peninsula to Norton Sound and the Yukon Delta coast. And showers continue with a trough there right across the southeast coast. Again, heaviest over the northern areas, drier down to the south with some clearing possibly, Metlakatla, Ketchikan, Klawak. Lows, overnight lows tonight in the 30s for the Arctic coast, 40s from the North Slope southward, much of the interior in the 40s, lower 40s out west, lower to mid 40s, and mid to upper 40s for the Aleutians, 45 to 50 south central Alaska, upper 40s Kodiak Island, and lower 50s for the Panhandle. That'll be followed by highs tomorrow, maybe the mid 60s in the Yukon Flats, otherwise the greater Fairbanks area looking at a high near 60 or so. Lower 60s for the area from the eastern Alaska Range, North Waytoke into the Copper River Basin, 55 to 60 south central Alaska, and near 50 as you head west there out toward the coastline. Upper 40s, Bering Strait coast, St. Lawrence Island, lower to mid 40s on the Arctic coast, and 50 to 55 for the Pribilofs and the Aleutians, mid 50s for the Alaska Peninsula. Only upper 50s for Kodiak Island and mid 50s there in Bristol Bay. Southeast coast highs, upper 50s north, lower 60s to the south. And then low Saturday morning for the Panhandle, much like you'll see Friday morning, lower 50s, that's about it. And in the 40s, mid to upper for south central Alaska, lower 40s, higher elevations, the Copper River Basin, mid to upper 30s for the Arctic coast, and near 40 for the North Slope. In the 40s for just about all of the interior, lower to mid 40s out toward the Bering Sea coastline, upper 40s though for the Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. And for Saturday afternoon, highs still cool, no 70s showing up at all, just mid 60s along the Yukon River there up toward Chalkyitsik and Venati, Fort Yukon area, Beaver, mid to upper 60s, possibly mid 60s in the Fairbanks area, Tanana Valley. Otherwise, lower 60s, Madanuska-Susitna Valley, Kenai Peninsula, upper 50s near the coastlines, mid 50s for the North Gulf Coast, and upper 50s to lower 60s there for the Panhandle. Kodiak Island, highs mid 50s, with that next system coming in with the rain and wind, so it'll be a little cooler than tomorrow there for Kodiak Island, and mid 50s mostly for the Alaska Peninsula as well, with increasing wind and rain in that location. Otherwise, not too bad. Lower to mid 50s, pretty seasonable for the Aleutians. Pribilofs, lower 50s for the highs, and upper 40s to lower 50s there along the west coast. Up along the Arctic coast, still upper 30s on the central coast. Otherwise, lower to mid 40s, but pushing near 50 for the North Slope areas.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather, IFR, the Arctic coast, marginal VFR for the North Slope, Brooks Range, northeast interior. Area of IFR there extending from roughly around the Kobuk Valley, cutting across the southern Koyukuk Valley, then down across Yukon River into the mid-Tanana Valley area. Around Fairbanks, Nenana, McKinley Park, southward, Madanuska-Susitna Valley, Copper River Basin, all of the southeast interior, including the North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle. Another zone of IFR over the Seward Peninsula, Yukon Delta, Norton Sound, northern Bering Sea, becomes marginal with a swath of VFR there that's sitting right over the Pribilof Islands, and that moves into the Alaska Peninsula. Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, all VFR. Back to the IFR for the Aleutians. And for the afternoon, Friday, marginal VFR, North Slope and Arctic coast, narrow band of IFR there across the western central Brooks Range down into the northern Koyukuk Valley and Yukon Flats, and then southward again into the mid-Tanana Valley area, and then southeastward across the northern, far northern Susitna Valley, and then the Talkeetnas, cutting across the Copper River Basin, Yakutat IFR, southeast coast IFR, marginal VFR, northern Cook Inlet, Turnagain Arm, Prince William Sound. VFR though, southwest interior, and the Kenai Peninsula down toward Kodiak, all VFR. IFR holding over the northern Bering Sea into the Yukon Delta, Norton Sound, Seward Peninsula. VFR holding over the Pribilofs, and IFR for the Aleutians, with marginal VFR into the western Alaska Peninsula. And for Saturday morning, IFR right along the Brooks Range, north and south of that, marginal VFR conditions. IFR areas of in the central interior from the northern Bering Sea Strait area, Seward Peninsula, eastward to the border, and then some VFR again over the Pribilofs into the Kuskokwim Delta, Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, all VFR. IFR for the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians. Areas of marginal VFR and IFR for the southeast coast. The North Gulf Coast looking mostly marginal. That gives way to good VFR Saturday afternoon, as you can see from the Pribilof Islands right into the southwest interior, and IFR Bristol Bay pushing into southern Cook Inlet, Kachemak Bay there, but staying south of Anchor Point. Kodiak IFR, Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians IFR, marginal VFR for the Panhandle, but big area of VFR now for the North Gulf Coast into the interior. And for passes, Anatuvik starting out marginal, improving throughout the afternoon, hopefully to VFR flying conditions. And for Adigan, though, occasionally marginal at times, which means VFR at other times during the day Friday. Lake Clark and Merrill, improving trends starting out with the lowest conditions in the morning, best in the afternoon to early evening. Rainy, mostly marginal throughout the day at times. And for windy, marginal VFR. Isabel, marginal VFR, possibly IFR early on. And for Mentesta, marginal VFR. Tanita, IFR becoming marginal. And for the Portage Pass, IFR, Chilcoot and White, IFR. Freezing levels, upper level low, cooler air aloft, 4,000 feet and over the western interior areas. Quite a gradient there across the southern Bering Sea and the Alaska Peninsula, running 4,000 to 12,000 feet and about 8,000 to 10,000 feet over the Panhandle. Icing, areas of isolated moderate rime or mixed icing, interior Alaska, maybe the Arctic coast, northern Bering Sea. Much less of a threat over southern Alaska and the Aleutians and the Panhandle. And the jet stream here showing that strong jet from the west, 65 up to 110 knots there from around the Pribilof Islands eastward, just clipping southern Kodiak Island and then west-southwest at about 80 knots into the Panhandle. And for 9,000 feet, strongest winds setting up now south of the forecast area, mostly from the west-southwest, and 35 knot southwesterlies into the Yukon Delta turn southerly at about 25 to 30 knots over eastern Norton Sound. And for turbulence, with the system coming into the western Aleutians, look for considerable moderate chop there from Amchitka Island westward to Shimianatu. Otherwise, an area of considerable moderate for the northwest coast, Kotzebue Sound, most of the Seward Peninsula, eastern Norton Sound.
Beep boop beep, that's welcome to Stargazers in Robot. I speak a little robot. This week, Mars and the Moon will have a conjunction, so let's see it. Hit the darkness before sunrise on the 21st and look southeast. The red dot next to the waning moon, that's Mars. Mars is an inhospitable wasteland today with only 1% of Earth's atmosphere and about 1/3 the gravity. But scientists think that Mars may not have always been this way. We have sent dozens and dozens of spacecraft to explore it, and some are still up there working. Perseverance and its tiny sidekick, a helicopter named Ingenuity, are the newest. In April 2021, Ingenuity achieved liftoff, the first powered flight on another planet. While out in the dark, looking up at Mars, imagine all those robots learning new things about a planet that's just right there. Keep looking up.
The beluga whale, also known as the white whale, lives in large groups and are unusual among whales. They have no dorsal fin, large bulbous heads, and they can actually swim backwards. To feed, they produce sound to find and hunt fish and invertebrates, and they use sound to communicate.
They're also known as the canaries of the sea because they make such a diversity of noises. They make chirps and whistles and gurgles and trumpeting sounds. They just make all kinds of sounds.
In the U.S., beluga whales live in the cold waters of Alaska, and there are 5 separate populations. Of those 5, the Cook Inlet population is the smallest, and has declined by about 75%. Subsistence hunting may have contributed to this initial population drop, but this practice was regulated starting in 1999, with the last hunt in 2005. Still, the beluga population here has yet to recover.
We listed Cook Inlet beluga whales as an endangered species under the Endangered Species Act in 2008, and we had hoped that the population would start recovering, but we are still seeing a continued decline. And these beluga whales are only found in Cook Inlet, and so if they go extinct, we don't think any other belugas will come back and populate this area.
These whales spend most of their summer near Anchorage, Alaska's largest city, where threats to belugas are on the rise as the city grows. These may include diminishing food, habitat loss or destruction, pollution, toxins, and human-caused noise, which hampers their ability to feed and communicate. Researchers are trying to understand which of these threats may be impacting them most, but Cook Inlet is a tough place to work.
It's really hostile for research. We have the strong tides, which makes it challenging for human safety, and we can't see through the water. It is very muddy, so we're pretty much limited to the part of the animal that breaks the surface of the water. And as a result, we have limited information about the specific population dynamics of Cook Inlet beluga whales.
Up until recently, information has mainly come from annual aerial surveys from aircraft and boat or shore-based photo identification surveys that use unique markings to tell animals apart. Scientists also use passive acoustics to listen for belugas, but none of these methods can detect much information about their health.
So it's really been a game changer with the whole species in the spotlight designation. We've gotten more resources within our agency.
For instance, we're able to use a drone to collect some aerial imagery of belugas in the wild, and we're hoping to learn some information about the age classes, information about the health status.
And probably the most important bit of information that we'll get out of that is we'll be able to identify the new calves. And we're hoping if we keep doing this every year, we'll be able to get an estimate of calf production every year that will tell us something about how well the population is doing.
We are also expanding upon our biopsy studies, hopefully to give us some information about sex, the individual's reproductive status, some genetic information, some contaminant loads.
Public and private partners are contributing as well. Some are looking at toxin levels in the whale's prey, while others are analyzing beluga teeth to learn about their age and past diet. Others monitor water quality and how belugas react to boats, and more check to see if their behavior changes with increased background noise. All of these findings will go toward developing effective recovery strategies for this population.
As for what you can do, if you're out boating, give belugas space. Don't drive right up next to them. Stay about 100 yards away. If you're flying over them, just remember that you're putting noise into the water as well, and so stay at least 1,500 feet above them. Report a stranded beluga whale as soon as possible, and that's if they're dead stranded or live stranded. The amount of information that we can learn from these animals by responding to a stranding is monumental, and it will help our efforts to recover them.
Together we can help beluga whales thrive in the dynamic waters of Cook Inlet. With continued research and good stewardship, we hope to see this population grow in the years to come.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Marine forecast for the south coast of the Panhandle, south to southwest winds on Friday, 15 knots. And for the north coast, winds will be out of the south 20, in some cases 25 knots, seas 7 feet. Lynn Canal, southeast winds 15 knots, seas 3 feet. Stevens Passage, southeast winds 10 knots, seas 2 feet. Clarence Strait, southerlies 15 knots, seas 3 feet. And then for the first day of the weekend, Saturday, not too bad wind-wise anywhere. West-southwest winds on the south coast at 15 knots, and for the north coast, south to southwest winds 10 to 20 knots. Central and southern inside waters, Stevens Passage, Clarence Strait, light winds at about 10 knots from the south or southeast, and south winds 15 knots for Lynn Canal. Prince William Sound, southeast winds 15 knots, seas 2 feet. North Gulf Coast, small craft advisories, southwest winds 20 to 25 knots with seas up to 7 feet. West winds 20 knots for the Barren Islands, and small craft advisories for Kamishak Bay and southern Cook Inlet for 25 knot winds. Out of the west for Kamishak Bay and southern Cook Inlet, southwest for the direction. Lighter winds north of the Forelands from the south at 15. And for Saturday, Cook Inlet, south to southeast wind at 15 knots, seas 3 to 4 feet. East winds 15 knots, Prince William Sound, 3-foot seas. Small craft advisories as winds increase with that system coming up just east of Kodiak Island. Small craft advisories for the Barren Islands and North Gulf Coast, sustained 25 knots from the southeast with seas building to 8 to 10 feet. Kamishak Bay, east winds increasing to 20 knots in the afternoon with 5-foot seas. And for the Kodiak Island area, west winds 15 to 20 knots. Light variable winds for the Alaska Peninsula with 4-foot seas. West winds 10 knots for Bristol Bay, seas 3 feet. And then on Saturday, switch the direction around, and 20-knot winds from the east and southeast for the Alaska Peninsula. And also Kodiak Island, east-southeast winds 20 knots with 5 to 9-foot seas. And Bristol Bay looking at east winds at 15 knots for Saturday, seas 4 feet. Eastern Aleutians for Friday, light variable winds with 4-foot seas. Central Aleutians, east at 15. And for the Western Aleutians, east winds 20 knots with seas at 6 feet. And for Saturday, Western Aleutians shaping up for winds to be from the northeast at 20 knots, seas around 6 feet. Central Aleutians, Adak and Atka, Northeast winds 15 to 20 knots. And for the eastern Aleutians, winds will be out of the northeast 15 to 20 knots, seas running 5 to 7 feet. Pribilofs on Friday, light variable winds at 10 knots, seas maybe around 4 feet. And for the Kuskokwim Delta Coast, southwest winds 15, Yukon Delta Coast west at 20 knots. That's forecast also good for St. Matthew Island. St. Lawrence Island northwesterlies at 20 knots, but small craft advisories are still out for Friday for Norton Sound for south winds at 25 knots with 5-foot seas. And for Saturday, those winds drop off to 20 knots there for Norton Sound, southwest 15 for St. Lawrence Island, and light variable winds for the Yukon Delta Coast Saturday, northeast winds 15 knots for the Kuskokwim Delta coastline, and Pribilofs with 4-foot seas, St. Matthew Island, northwest winds 15 knots. Eastern Beaufort Sea Coast, east-northeast at 15 to 20 knots for the day Friday, northeast 20 knots on the central coast. Small craft advisories for the western Arctic coast there for northeast winds 25 knots. Small craft advisories also for the area from Wales to Cape Thompson for east winds at 25 knots with 6-foot seas. And for Saturday, all of the Arctic coast looking at northeast winds at 20 knots with seas running 2 to 4 feet in the ice-free waters. And 15-knot winds from the east or northeast from Cape Beaufort to Wales, seas 3 to 4 feet. For tonight, low pressure kind of wobbles around the Seward Peninsula and slowly weakens. That'll keep it wet and unsettled, but winds will be diminishing across that area with showers and rain over the southern part of the state. Will be on the heaviest side, eastern North Gulf Coast and toward Yakutat. Then the showers cut off over the southern panhandle. It looks dry for the southern southeast coast. Some pretty moderate rain reaching the central Brooks Range area. Next front spreads rain eastward to Adak and Atka late tonight. And then that sort of backs off as a new front develops and pushes in right behind it. So rain periods of with breezy conditions, but nothing too serious for the central and western Aleutians. And for Saturday, rain and wind move into Kodiak Island.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.